all systems go.
All in studio, in headset. All right, now I feel at home.
Sean's happy place.
I can finally feel at home.
Yeah.
Let's see. I gotta quiet all the things on my machine. Stop. Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, here it feels lonely. All of a sudden, we're like, it's just back to the two of us in here.
I know, yes. There's this great big hole between us. Something or someone is missing.
I know. It feels a little, it does feel a little funny because.
Yeah, like we've had a bust up and we're sort of separating out.
Or it's like, you're like, I'm trying on a new scent today. And it's like, oh, geez.
Yes.
Sandalwood and.
That's lovely, Sean. Just stay over there a little bit.
It's the opposite of an enticing aroma, right? You're like, stay over there.
Yeah.
No, this is, but it is. We've had back-to-back guests.
Yep.
And it does. When we were in here again, it's a small studio
That's
space.
right.
We have to
cozy,
really,
yes, yeah.
we have to really sort of snuggle in,
right,
to get there. But yeah, now that there's no one here, it feels like this gaping hole.
It does. Yeah. So we need a dummy, or we talked about putting something on the wall. But
we need
I feel we need something there. Yes.
We need something interactive. Maybe I don't know what we could put there.
Right.
This would be a great opportunity for people who are watching or listening. Let us know, what should we put right here? What kind of...
So yes, everybody who's listening, just sort of mentally imagine us in the studio with this sort of gaping gap between
That's right.
us.
We're sitting at different wedges on the circle table here, and there's an empty wedge which is a hot seat for when we have guests who come in. But yeah, when we don't have a guest, suddenly it feels empty. It never did before, but now suddenly it's like we've had enough guests, I think, or now we're like, it's missing.
But anyway, just back to me and you.
Yeah. So I think this I think will be a fun show because we have the luxury. So this is episode 53,
yes.
Which means we've crossed the barrier of the 1 year mark.
Yep.
Which is
first episode of a new year of Modem Futura.
That's right.
But I cannot believe 52 episodes.
Yeah.
We have gone every single week for a year
without missing a beat.
Yeah.
And I have less hair and more stress lines. No,
right.
I didn't have any hair to begin with, so it doesn't matter.
Blast, yeah.
But no, it's been an absolute blast. And I mean, just in terms of, with podcasts, right? When they start, you never know, right? Just how it's going to land, how it's going to go. Because even if you have, and this potentially for anyone who's out there who's thinking, I want to start a podcast, it is one of those things where you can have everything planned out, detailed out. But really the number one thing is just get on the microphone, start going.
And keep on going.
And keep on going, because it is a grind.
It's the intentionality. And if you just do a few episodes and think it's not worth it, you'll never get anywhere. You've got to keep the graft going.
That's it. And, I have sort of either like consulted or maybe counseled is a better word, of other people who have been looking to try to start podcasts either professionally or as like a side thing or just as a hobby even.
Yeah.
But that is often the number one thing is like when you start understanding that it is a mountain that you're walking up a very steep mountain in terms of trying to get exposure and listens and things like that. But it is not an overnight game unless you're one of these like, A-list celebrities who, seem to steal all the...
But then even talking to the people that have made it big on podcasts, most of them will tell you it's serendipity.
Yeah.
They cannot tell you what the secret sauce was. Just at some point, everything comes together and they take off.
Yeah, that's it. Well, and I was thinking too, and I'm just looking at our list too.
Yeah.
So our, this will be perfect because this episode will drop, I think, on October 14th.
Yes.
As it'll be. And our first episode dropped on October 15th of 2024.
Very close.
So, entitled, What Does It Mean to Be Human in the Future?
Although we may switch those around because we had the book launch episode.
Yeah.
Is that going out on the 14th or is that going out earlier than that?
That was planning to go out the week before this.
Aha, right. Okay.
So we have the lead up. So never mind. Magic. You edit that out. Now, you know what?
We are so on top of things here.
Yeah, you know what? We run a tight ship for we ran a tight ship for 52 weeks, and now the wheels just come off.
Right.
That's it. No, but I also think one thing, Andrew, I have to say, and we can like start and whatever, because I think this is going to be my dream. This episode is all going to be just a random cold open. But I think one of the things that is so fun also, and I really appreciate you coming on this journey with me as well and doing it in this way where we're not hiding stuff, right? So a lot of, and I think this also really, has attributed to the success that we have had so far and are continuing to do, which has been so encouraging and so amazing. But it is because we build a relational podcast, a relational experience, right?
Yep.
And I think part of that, and I've talked about, I can't remember if I've talked about this on the mic specifically, but throughout the time that I've developed multiple podcasts, done other things, I have always sort of approached it in the way that you would like a teaching hospital, in the sense that now, don't worry, there's no knives, no one's getting cut. I'm not administering medication to anyone, or at least I won't admit to that. But to do it in a way that is participatory with people, so people can see how it's done. You can see the
guts of it.
Gut, you can see, because you.
This actually doesn't sound good with the teaching hospital. Come in here, we'll just open people up. You can see the guts all coming out.
You can see all the innards and how they work and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's not how it works these days.
No, right. But I do think it's important also for people to see, because so oftentimes what we see, again, and we've talked about this many times, is what you see is that polished tip of the iceberg.
Right,
you don't see the amount of sweat and work and trial and error that goes into a lot of things. And so, kind of as we will, no matter what we do, we'll always be educators. And so that's a piece of it too, is, we'll open the doors, and you can, the surgical theater to, if you would, you can see how we do it.
No, you can join us on the journey. That's the relational bit of it. And I've written about this, that idea of parasocial relationships, we have this connection with our audience.
Yep.
You come in and listen because you feel as if you're part of the family, warts and all.
Yep,
well,
absolutely.
Hopefully not too many warts, but yes, you see it as it is.
And your seat at the table is sitting,
just there,
sitting just there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Why don't we go into the intro, and then we'll just carry on the elongated cold open.
That sounds perfect. All right. Well, I'm Sean Leahy, joined by my 1-year podcast co-host extraordinaire,
Andrew Maynard.
And that means, hey, this is Modem Futura, the show that explores the intersection of technology, society, and the possible, probable, and preferable futures, asking deep questions like, what does it mean to be human in the future? And now we can say in the future plus one more year, because we've made it that far, which is also quite fun. So I did a couple of things I was thinking about. One is I don't want to let go of this idea of the relational versus transactional piece, because I think it's very important.
Yep.
And the concept of parasocial relationships, I think, is not anything new, certainly not new to podcasting. But for people who maybe don't know what that term means, it's basically you will form as a sort of like in a broadcast or in any sort of consumption medium perspective, you, the reader, the listener, the viewer, form basically a one-sided relationship with those. So you feel this, right? You have your favorite, you have your favorite podcasts, you have your favorite, YouTubers, you have your favorite.
It makes you feel good. Even when Sean is talking about stuff that you have no idea what he's going on about, you're still smiling as you're listening to his dulcet tones. Because he's part of the family now.
That's right. When I go off, just think about how lucky that makes you, right? When I go off on some nerd tangent with numbers and things, I'm like, have you seen the gen lock on the thing? And everyone's eyes glaze over.
Right.
Welcome to the family.
Yep.
But I do think that's really important also. And I think because, if we think about the podcast space in general, and again, for those of you who are thinking of like either you have started one, you want to start one, the podcast space is incredibly crowded. It's been around now for, roughly almost 25 years.
Yep.
And in that time, for the longest time, podcasting was like the other sort of medium that you could play in, right?
Yep.
Until, really, I think the pandemic really hit that hard. It was a confluence of, we have early successes in podcasts. So going back to, things in podcasting in general, even though it's only been sort of around for about a little over 20 years, it's already had many cycles
ups
of
and downs.
Yeah, right. Yep. And you see these things with like the blockbuster like true crime show Serial, right?
Yep.
When that came out, which was I forget the exact year, 2012 or something of that nature, and it was like podcasting is now a thing. It's like, it's been around for a while, guys. But I do think, you have this massive shift when podcasting really sort of just exploded in terms of, because for the first, maybe not first time, but in a sort of massive wave, you're seeing sort of those A-list celebrities and people who were traditional television or radio,
and it was the radio stuff that really struck me, where you had these spin-offs from sort of 3-5 minute radio segments now having sort of hour-long podcasts.
Yeah.
And that sort of confluence between sort of the radio and the podcast, and both of them drawing off of each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the major spin-offs of that in the United States anyway were coming out of NPR.
That's right.
And the WNYC studios in New York producing, all kinds of what used to be NPR radio shows becoming full-length podcasts and things like that, and then and being very successful as that as well. But there's always been this tension between podcast and creation and the money that comes behind it.
Right.
Surprise, surprise. Because normally those industries are so heavily dominated by advertising revenue. And, if you listen to a lot of podcasts, depending on how many you listen to, you'll know this, where you have like random ad insertions and now you can listen to your podcast, but you got to pay for the one without ads. And so there's lots of different sort of ways of monetizing it. But I think during the COVID-19, also you had a lot of A-list celebrity actors who couldn't work, who, their productions were shut down or on hiatus or whatever.
Recording,
and they were like, hey, let's jump into this podcast. Right. But also there was a shift of a lot of money moving in with, I don't have the figures in front of me, but like massive, in the tens and even in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollar contract deals from hosting services like Spotify, for example, who bought exclusively the rights to Joe Rogan's podcast. And then originally, I think they had Call Her Daddy, which that's moved on to other places now. But again, these podcasts that were getting like TV-sized financial deals, like $100 million.
But I think the interesting thing with this was that people watched this and thought, this is easy. If somebody else is getting millions of views, surely I just need to get myself a microphone and a computer and I'll be there. And the reality is that this field is so crowded that I forget what the latest figures are, but isn't it most podcasts only get sort of listened to sort of 5-10 times a week? That's the vast majority. Thankfully, we're not in that category. But the reality is that the people set up a podcast, the chances are you'll get your sort of friends, your family, and their dog listening, and very few other people. Yeah, it's a difficult space, and that's why I think one of the pieces are, and again for. And not that we have the perfect model, but you have to find the model that works for you. Right. Yes, right. One of the things that I always suggest too for people who are thinking about it is this idea of like, well, if you're having a good time, like make the show you wanna listen to. Right. If you're having a good time doing it, it's going to be fun because it is a lot of work. And this is how we've succeeded. So the little secret here is Sean enjoys this so much that even when we get one listener, he goes away with a smile on his face because he's having such a blast. Yay, I did it. It's all about you for you, Sean. This is all a ruse to just stroke my ego. Like one person. But no, I mean, I think that's a huge piece of it. And I think what's been, for me, kind of just looking back on it, too, one of the things that's been really fun about Modem Futura is, again, I think, we set off to bring a lot of the work that we do professionally, but bring that out into the public sphere because to be honest, it does not really exist in the way that we do it. I mean, it's not to say we are not the only podcast that talks about futures or technology or society. But I would say a lot of them lean towards the transactional side of things. That's it, yes. And we should say that's basically sort of transactional, meaning you think you've got something that somebody else wants and you give it to them in a very polished way. Sort of like you're lecturing to them, you're sort of giving a class, but there's this sense of sort of a relationship building there. Right, or a community. Because I mean, and I think, we've, again, one of the thrills of this have been talking to people who have come up saying who have expressed either through email or in person even, who have said, that they're fans of the show. But more importantly than that have been, again, the part that has made me the most, given me the most pep in my step after, talking to them is when they say like, we use your podcast
in our team.
Right.
Because again, the topics and things that we're bringing up are, fascinating and interesting to us, but also the hope is that they're catalyzing all these conversations for other people.
Right.
And to hear that is working, that we
and of course this is the point. So
that.
You go back to the genesis of this. So we're sitting here in ASU's Future of Being Human initiative, which was expressly set up, and we said this on one of the earlier episodes, to catalyze these conversations. We're not about preaching at people or telling people what to think or how the world is. We're here to start really important and deep conversations. And so when we hear that that's happening, that is amazing.
It literally, I will walk away and be like, this is so exciting.
Right.
Because you're like, it's working.
Right.
Right. And that feels tremendous, but also it is a very sort of encouraging, and we get that sort of feedback as well from people and from groups that we've been sort of working with and talking with. And that's just tremendous.
And of course, part of this is, and I find this so hard to explain to sort of my fellow academics. We're actually sort of learning as we do this.
Yeah.
So with every single conversation, certainly I have with you and with our guests, I go away having learned more, whether it's my thinking clicking into places or clicking into place or revealing things that I hadn't thought of before, or whether it's learning something new from you or other people. So this is really very much part of our real-time research and scholarship.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that people get to sit in and watch the process happen.
I think so as well. And again, it comes back to that, whatever the medical theater, but it is, in some ways it's also part of, I think we both take this quite seriously, is our sort of our role of demonstrating what does a knowledge what does it look like to, there's this longstanding joke, right? Where you're like, well, what'd you do all day? You're like, well, I thought about stuff. Right. Like that's what I did all day is I thought. And, but I think it's very true. Like this, the time that we set aside for the production of Modem Futura is very much a literal living laboratory of where we're doing this exact thing. We're exchanging ideas. We're building, we're discovering the new ways of thinking or making these connections. And the number of times that we, again, even just personally, how much I get out of just doing these shows is amazing, because we'll find those connections in the moment while we're talking about them.
That's exactly it. Yes. Yeah.
And that's incredibly valuable.
And this is how it should be. So my model of this, I sort of grew up and trained as a physicist. And of course, there's this long heritage of physicists who really revel in this idea of exploring new ideas, having creative thoughts, bouncing ideas off others. And so this is in my blood. So what we do here, it may sound like banter, but actually it's allowing us to explore ideas in ways that are virtually impossible to explore otherwise, very much in that tradition of physics. Yep,
absolutely. And what I've got in front of me, I pulled up our grid of all of our episodes, right? Which is like, okay, so I will say, once you've made it, so we're weekly, of course. So we have over 52 because we have the pilot and the trailer and stuff.
Yes.
But I'm like, there's a part that's like, we have done a lot when I have to scroll multiple times with three columns of episodes. But like just looking back at the topics, just point in case, right? We talk about everything from, we talk about literal futures and future studies. So we talk about that element. We have things like, virtual artificial worlds. Can machines think? We got into a Waymo and did an episode from a Waymo, which was super cool and fun. The simulation hypothesis, right? Is this all fake? Envisioning tomorrow, power of futures thinking, a lot of AI stuff, of course, reasoning. I really like the episode we did specifically on the radical creativity. Specifically around like how does that sort of surface these unconventional possibilities. We've done live episodes. We've done some from a pub in Thunderbird, downtown Phoenix. We've done a live holiday special, which was super fun with the crew from the Center of Science and Imagination here. We talk about space stuff. We talk about robots. We talk about AGI and superintelligence, and it goes on and on and on. One of my favorites. Biohybrid robots. One of my favorites. We had an episode entitled "The Medium is the Message." which I hold dear, and lots of educational things.
Yep.
The number of times John Dewey has been evoked.
I know, yes.
Like H.G. Wells, John Dewey, we cover this thing. And so, I mean, just looking back at these vibe casting, all kinds of stuff. The World Economic Forum, dire wolves, severed minds, living circuits, Murderbot, the Osaka World Expo. I mean, just it goes on and on and on with just so many cool episodes.
It's a degree in a podcast, Sean.
If we were allowed to, I'll tell you this.
Yes.
If you send me a homemade transcript that you listen to all, I will send you back a piece of paper.
I'm going to say homemade certificates.
Yes, I will. I guaranteed Andrew and I will issue a homemade certificate.
There's got to be something here. Yes, a certificate of completion.
A Modem Futura certificate of, something,
Right.
I
can see the Modem Futura digital credential. I guess people do use these things.
They're not hard to make.
You can put on your LinkedIn profile that you have got the Modem Futura.
So after the show, I will look into this because Badger, you think it's not hard to set these things up.
Right.
So we might just have to do that because that would be pretty funny. You can be Modem Futura approved or certified.
What do you ask listeners to do though to get the certification?
I know. You have to rate and review and leave us a really nice. That's extortion. I don't know.
I think it probably is.
Yeah.
Yes. They have to do the assignment and then they leave the review.
That's right. You do the assignment and then leave the review. And I mean, also Modem Futura. I don't know how many podcasts can claim this, but Modem Futura is astronaut approved. Thanks to Katie Coleman.
Yes.
So, like I said, man, it is incredible to look back across this entire year. And also how much is, if I look, as I'm looking through this, I'm getting the little tingly senses of oh yeah, in that one, they were talking about AGI was next week. And now here we are.
There we are. Yes. And it's still next week, next month, next year.
Yeah. Always. Right. Yep. It's always just beyond the horizon.
Yep.
No, it's been fascinating, but, case in point too, this is also what I love is I originally had a thought to take this conversation slightly different. But I love where we ended up because it comes all the way back is we talk about care, the concept of care a lot. And also thanks to the episode with Emma Frau, who really sort of put that into, again, talk about a living laboratory. In that conversation with her, she solidified in my brain a way of expressing this thing that I've been scratching at for so long that I just couldn't quite articulate, which was, and she put it so eloquently in this idea of the concept of care and how that sort of permeates through these things. And ever since that conversation, I talk about it all the time.
Right.
Because I finally feel like I have the language to express what I've been meaning when I've been either appreciative of something or frustrated with something else.
Yep.
I didn't quite have the right language to identify why. And I think that episode really, that really had sort of locked that in, which is phenomenal. But I think again, when we look at our our growing catalog of episodes, one of the things that I think I'm most proud of is the amount of care that we take with not only the production, but also just with the topics and the way we approach it.
Right. Yes.
Again, always with this idea of that we want this out into the world to serve a better purpose, a bigger purpose, a broader purpose.
I think that's it. I mean, and this is so central to the work that both of us do. And I was actually at a meeting last night where we were talking about the new book that's coming out. And I was saying the one thing I cannot abide is preachiness. I do not see the point in somebody who's going to try and convince you to think in a certain way or see the world in a certain way or just beat you around the head until you are there in submission. I want to plant seeds of ideas in people's heads so that they can take them whichever way they want to, and they can do something wonderful and different and unexpected with them. And I hope that this is what we do. We're approachable enough that no matter where you're coming from, however you see the world, whatever your beliefs are, whether they're political, religious, or whatever, or your worldview is, you'll find something that enhances how you think about the world and your place in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. And I mean, I think that's, again, comes back to some of those core fundamentals of this, this ability to be incredibly open, right? And part of that like radical, along with the radical creativity comes the undying curiosity around the, and we both, I mean, that's something that we both share. Could you imagine how boring this would be if we weren't curious about stuff? We're like, well, on today's episode, we will be exploring the technical, trust me, I could do that.
No. That would not be good. Even that was probably too much.
I'm like, because as I say this, and I hope our listeners by now, again, you're part of the family, you get me.
Right.
I am resisting the temptation to talk about the technical production side of podcasting.
So I've got to tell the listeners, Sean has been chomping at the bit for probably 52 weeks now to give you the full technical details of exactly how he makes each episode. Down to the microphones he uses, the mixing deck he uses, the settings, the weird things that you do in the setup. And my job for 52 weeks has been to prevent him doing this.
No, stop. and I appreciate that because I know what will happen. We will lose this beautiful audience. But I think maybe I will do it as what I should do is I should do it as just a bonus content that I'll put out there for those who are interested because, and I would be lying if I said I did not have an entire show note rundown explaining why you need to use a LUF of -16 on your mixes. And if you listen, all I will say is this, if you listen to podcasts and you're like, what? I can't hear what they're saying. Why does it sound so bad? Because they need to talk.
They haven't got their LUFs.
That's right. They haven't got their LUFs in order, and they need to talk to Sean. But again, I come back. It's part of that thing. I can't help myself, and I want to share, and I shouldn't. From a competitive, standpoint, I should not share for all these other podcasts that are kind of trying to get in on the same stuff that we're doing. I should not be sharing the stuff, but I can't help it. I'm like, I should share with the world what I've done.
We'll indulge you. On your birthday, we'll have we'll record the special edition. We'll have somebody in with a steady cam so they can sort of pan it around all the things, and you can be in your element.
There we go. I will promise that at a future date, right? Or if we get,
we'll just warn people, sort of enter at your own peril.
That's right. Or, I will put it out there. If enough people give us a review and say, we want that. And then we'll be able to see that. And I'll say, look, I'll
give you the license.
That's right. I'll have the data to back up the need for it. But, but so coming all the way back, I was listening to a podcast myself earlier. And one of the things that was talking about, there's a new, have you heard of this new tool? It's called the Hux, Huxe. Have you heard of this yet?
I don't think so.
Describe it. It's really new. It is, it's like it's a mobile app. It's from a few of the original crew out of Google's NotebookLM.
Okay.
They left, which sounds from the podcast I was listening to, it sounds like it was all on good terms. But they left, started this new platform called Hux, which is basically trying to do. So what NotebookLM does for people who aren't familiar is you can give it, this is a tool from Google, that you can give it documents, URLs from web addresses, things like that. And it will basically run all these generative AI tools across that information. So you can query just that. So it keeps it contained. It's part of the RAG.
So similar to NotebookLM.
Yes, except and so out of NotebookLM, originally anyway, one of the fanciest outputs was the podcast that I could create, right? Which we played with and we showed people, and we talked about that back in, I forget, I can look it up which episode it was, nearly a year ago. And it's interesting, it's cool. But what Hux does is you give it same kind of stuff. You give it any kind of content, which also raises some privacy concerns because they're like, give it your email. And I'm like, you don't think so. They claim they're not training or looking at it, but I don't know. But same kind of thing. You can provide it, RSS feeds, you can provide it documents, all these different mechanisms. And then it creates radio stations. So the idea is that instead of having a one-off, 10-minute podcast based on the content you're interested in, it creates a 24/7 flow of a radio station.
Wow.
That you would,
like talk radio or something?
Yeah, basically.
It doesn't make music out of it. It's
or
create a playlist.
Right. So basically you give it your interests. Like the examples that they use are big tech roundup. And so it goes out, scrapes all the tech blogs and whatever, and then creates a 24/7 air quote radio station that's just live and doesn't repeat and just keeps going.
How interesting.
Generating this stuff on the fly. And when I'm listening to this, two things came up to me. One is, I'm in the background, I'm working on a paper, but it's this concept for me that it keeps coming back up, and this idea of liquid media, right? So and I'm sitting here going like, this is a great example of exactly that concept of, in this new generative age that we're living in, right? That the content that has existed in multiple forms, whether it be blogs, whether it be YouTube channels, whether it be your calendar, apparently, your email, right? That this system is taking that and turning it into
very fluid.
Yeah. And so in some ways, like the sort of the vision that I have of this thing, right, is sort of like from Star Trek. It's like the replicator, right? You have all the information and all the media is just the material,
transmuting it into something else.
That's right. So when you walk up and you say Earl Grey hot, you know what I mean? You tell it how you want this media, and I'm like, this is actually a really a really good in the wild example of how this is starting to play out right now.
Yes, yeah.
And we've seen little glimpses before in the video side of things, right? So new with Sora, with Midjourney has one, and there, this constant push and evolution of being able to create video. Still difficult.
But there's something unique about audio. If you go back to those earliest days of radio, it's a medium that is stuck in ways that others haven't, and a medium that's used in ways that others aren't. So you can imagine I can imagine very much in my head this idea of a 24/7 sort of audio stream, which is completely different from a video stream, because you can listen to audio in multiple different places. You can tune out, you can tune in while it's there.
And it's interesting. And one of the things that's been interesting to listen to, one of the founders was talking about it, was trying to understand the use cases and how people are using it. And it turns out they're using it very much like radio. It's intentional in terms of like, it's part of their morning routine or their commute, but also as background, right? To just, it's just something that they're interested in, and it just kind of plays in the background. But when I was listening to it, so I was two things. I'm like, oh, this is an interesting example of a form of liquid media, right? But also it feels very transactional, because what you're listening to are synthesized AI voices.
You're not getting that parasocial relationship.
Not at all.
And
so while it's interesting, right? I'm like, I look at that and I'm like, this is a pure transactional element where what you're getting from this is the information. That's it. Right. And maybe that's enough for people. Again, depends. Not that it's not a zero sum.
But I can imagine it being really wearing. Even if it's in the background, it's just giving you information. Sort of that. It's going to be hard to either tune that out, and you're constantly going to be sort of worn down by that trying to push its way into your brain.
And I'll put a link, of course, to their site where they have a thing where you can listen to a few of their curated things, so you can hear what it sounds like.
No, I'm fascinated to try. Although I must confess, I'm curious about this idea of, say, giving you access to your calendar as well as everything else. So it's doing the rundown of sort of latest news, and then presumably it inserts something about, you have a meeting coming up.
Hey, fool! I hope you're like just get an attitude. That would be kind of like like the carrot
3
weather.
3 hours ago, that meeting you were supposed to be at. Well,
it's sort of like do you use carrot weather at all? Do you know this one where it's like really weather, right? So you could like it can be downright brutal in terms of how it talks to you. I'm like, that's what this needs, is a little carrot thing where it's like, hey, you idiot, you forgot you missed your appointment. What kind of
so I can imagine that's the next layer. You sort of add personalities.
Well, I mean, but again, that would bring it towards more of the relational element of it if it had this ability. But it was interesting because I was listening to this, and we've talked on previous episodes before too around, this concept of like the dead internet or all these, when the content starts to become, the majority of it certainly starts to become
AI generated,
machine generated, and then consumed by machine, and somewhere the human is in there getting slices of it here and there. So it's interesting. So I look at this with quite sort of piqued interest and amusement to just see where this goes. Also because again, this is one of those signals that is talking about, we are moving towards a liquid media state.
Right.
There's lots of movement, again, in the video space even, but it's harder to do because of the compute time and all this kind of stuff.
That's it, yes.
But you can see the dotted line there of, eventually of going, the radio is great, but can I just have a sitcom that's like this and like that, but with these characters and whatever? Sure. Boo-doo-doo. There you go. Again, Earl Grey, hot. Just give me what I want. Just give me what I'm asking for.
But so the difficulty is that you'll go back to those sort of old style sort of drinks vendors where you say Earl Grey hot, and you get chicken soup every time.
That's right. Yeah, right. That's right.
Or it tastes like chicken soup. Everything tastes like chicken soup.
That's right. Or oh God, what happens? What is it that happens? In Hitchhikers trying to get the perfect cup of tea.
The perfect cup of tea, yes.
Breaks the improbability drive,
They're
right?
on the heart of gold, aren't they? Yes, yes. It's Arthur Dent. He eventually sort of gets it to sort of crack the perfect cup of tea, and everything else goes to pot.
Yeah, because it
takes all of the compute power to do that.
It takes all the compute power in the world to get the right cup of tea.
Yes.
And yeah.
This is where we're heading. Sort of this is the AI apocalypse.
I'm telling you.
It's the cup of tea apocalypse coming your way.
I think it's coming faster than we know.
Yep.
But I come back to this and I'm like, this is really interesting because again, and then I think about this in compared to like, again, the content that we create, right? Or people in there, we're not alone, but the people who create these shows that are intentional around that relational element, this won't do it.
That's it. Yes.
And and maybe who's to say in the future, maybe it'll get smart enough where it could demonstrate those same things.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't know.
But it's interesting. And this actually brings us back to the AI and the Art of Being Human book, which is just coming out.
Yeah.
In fact, when this airs,
it'll be out.
Yep. Because this is at the heart of it. And it raises these questions about sort of what is it that makes us us?
Yep.
Are we just consumers of stuff that is generated, or is there more to being us?
Yeah.
And I think everybody would agree there is absolutely more to being human. But if we don't think about that, if we don't have the intentionality of thinking about who we are, what defines us, and how the things that we're exposed to define us, we're just going to get sucked into the slop.
Yeah, exactly. And
now I'm having visions of people just getting caught in the quicksand slop of AI, just sinking down.
It's like a Soylent Green slop of sorts.
This is irony upon irony. I've got to get Sora to actually create this image of me, and it's the image of the person that is sunk down into the AI slop up to the tip of their nose, but they're still consuming material without even realizing they're just about to.
You're still
disappear.
doom scrolling, right?
That's right. Yes, right? As you disappear
as
below,
you melt into the oblivion. But I think that's good. And also, speaking of the book, so this episode, again, this will air on October 14th, which is the day it goes for purchase, right?
That's correct, yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And so remind us the full name of the book.
It's AI and the Art of Being Human. And I'm not going to give you the subtitle because I will mangle it. But with Jeffrey Abbott and me, Andrew Maynard, available everywhere you can buy good books.
Yeah, fantastic. And it'll be really, I think it'll be, talk about it. We couldn't have designed a better companion for this podcast too.
Strangely enough, they came from the same source. This whole idea of sort of being human.
That's how we do it.
Yes.
But yeah, because I think that, again, I think it's incredibly, you raise some incredibly important pieces to consider there because, again, if the question is often even as with media, right, is as we continue to be bombarded and overloaded with, information, whether that's information we're seeking and getting or information that's being thrust upon us, there is a temptation to just be like, oh, just let the AI let the AI do it.
Yep.
Our phones, you can set them up so like when anyone calls you, it's a number that you don't know, let the AI answer it and screen it for me. Thank you.
Right. Yep.
Which I am guilty of because I get spam calls all the time. I'm like, I do not want to answer this. But it does raise that question too of like where, and we've talked about this with our episode, right? Specifically around the terms, a slopper and clanker and all these, because there is a growing backlash. And interesting that just since that episode aired, I've also seen a few new articles coming out that are really highlighting another term, which is called work slop. Which is this layer, which I can say right now, and I have a story that'll tie in with our show about work slop. Because, so for people, if you're not familiar with that term, it's another sort of, pejorative, like negative term for work that's created in a professional work environment that someone in the chain of the workflow has been using generative AI.
Right. Yep.
And so they create, and we can use the fictional TPS report, right? So in their TPS report, they've used generative AI and passed it along to the next layer for approvals or publication or whatever.
Yep.
And that person now receives this work it sounds right.
Yeah,
it's not.
So they just pass it on. Yes. Yep.
Yep. And so now what we're seeing in organizations that have been deploying these tools in-house is this rise of what's called work slop, which is now as a whatever your role was in you've got information or work that comes to you, and then you have information and work that goes your inbox, your outbox kind of a situation. Now you're not only having to do what you normally did, now you're having to vet to make sure everything that coming to you hasn't been tampered or contaminated by an AI system that was inaccurate.
I imagine it's even worse than that. So you've got the slump in terms of inaccuracies. But of course, as AI gets more sophisticated, it's getting more and more accurate. But in terms of just the tone and the soul of it, it is still a machine.
Yeah.
And I worry that we're going to end up producing stuff which is just bland. And we've factored out the human. It feels superficially human-like, and we like it. It's like eating sugar.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's sweet. It's attractive.
Our body we want it. Right?
We want it. It hits all the right buttons superficially, but it lacks that essence of human.
Yeah.
Completely. And it really worries me that we're going into a bland, shallow future with this.
Yeah.
And then the question is, where is the value? What is the value we're truly creating?
Yep. And I think, and people, to their credit, right, critics of these systems they've been shouting this from the beginning, right?
Yes,
we can't do this, we shouldn't do this. Some of the concepts of that, right, is that collapse to the mean, that move to the middle of you take everything. And so you have to, if you think about it from a data perspective, right, you have this, spectrum of results, but it's like, what we really want is everything that averages out to the middle. Right. And so, you have something that's far to one side and far to the other side that might be incredible, new or exciting ways of thinking about stuff. But it's like, we don't want those. Those are outliers.
Yes.
Push them to the middle so they conform to the way everything else looks.
That's right. Everything is conventionally attractive. We're creating the Stepford Wives future. If anybody remembers the Stepford Wives movie, where important message, but such a sexist movie where a bunch of guys decide to sort of create the perfect woman and the perfect wife, and they're all identical in this community.
Yeah, yep. But that's it though. I mean, and that's this danger of between you have again that work slop that is either soulless or wrong, and so now, but also what's interesting is these in the business sort of publications. So it's coming in like Wired and Forbes and things, but what they're highlighting is that the work slop could be one of the largest threats to productivity. So completely counterintuitive to the whole point when people are like, we're gonna oops AI our whole company. With this idea of like, we don't need to hire entry-level employees anymore. We'll just have our mid-level employees do that, plus all the AI do whatever. But what they're actually seeing in practice is because of that generated work slop, it's actually causing productivity to take a major hit because of all the backing up you have to. And, I think we've both talked about this before. I always feel that because, again, if I use an AI tool in something that I'm writing or whatever, even if it's just a revision of like, I write something and it, kind of looks like garbage, I'll throw it and say like, do something fancy to that, let me see it. And it comes back and you're like, okay, cool. But then there's always this added layer of, if I don't know what words were put down, I have to read it and investigate it. And it adds a cognitive load.
Of course. So the interesting thing is, and I'm really conflicted here because, of course, the book that's coming out, we worked very closely with artificial intelligence as we described in the previous episode. And that I found a very generative process, but at the same time, there was a huge cognitive load there because everything that was written, I had to go through word by word, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, saying, is this right? Does this feel right? Are the references right? Are the statements right? So it was a massive cognitive lift. But also, having gone through that, it made me realize just how important my own creativity is. So my default now is still to write without artificial intelligence, even though that was a really powerful experiment. My identity is still in what I do without AI.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And it's like, for me, like, I'll share a little bit about how I use it as well. Cause I think, again, it can be a great writing tool to help, again, if you have language and you're like, ugh, in my own writing, I tend to repeat myself a lot, right? Probably on the podcast as well.
Never. You realize his podcast would be about 10 minutes long if you...
I realize I repeat myself is what I'm trying to say. And another way of saying that is I say the same thing more than once. But
let's get you out of the loop. A little jog.
Where am I? System reboot. Right. But for me, I find it very helpful in those situations where I'm like, what I've written is 150 words too long because it's repetitive.
Yes. Yep.
But other ways, again, one of the pathways that the tools are off, especially with things like deep research, right? These are incredibly exciting in terms of what they can do to surface new connections, new things.
That's it. Yes. Yep.
But for me, that's a great starting point of looking at like, I'll have an idea and I'll throw it in and I'll say, what about this and this? And and I'll usually ask it for stuff like, give me a quick rundown of major touch points of where. And I use it as a way of going, aha, there's something interesting. And then going from there. Because what I've found is because it'll give you, I remember the experiment you did with the dissertation.
That's right. Yes.
With some gentle prompting, whatever. I mean, you can get a massive tome of research that looks and sounds right. But again, if that's going to cross the transom of that is from Sean, that means I have to know every character that's in there.
That's exactly it, and own it.
Because otherwise, I realize not everyone feels that same way. But for me to do that, I feel like I would be too insecure of being like, is there a mistake in there or like something that would be unintentionally offensive that I didn't know was in there because I didn't read it carefully. So for me, the amount of cognitive like weight that puts on me is so much that I don't use it that way because I'm like, I don't want that burden. I don't want that burden of having to be the fact checker of the stuff. So it's like, if it comes from me, it's one thing, but yeah. So, I mean, case in point, I asked ChatGPT yesterday, I was like, hey, we're doing, we got a 1 year thing, like any fun games we could play. And it's like, hey, how about a lightning round trivia game that's all made up.
I love the segue into this, by the way, because I knew you were going to do this, but I was wondering how on earth you're going to get there.
And we could, one is we can just explain, like, I did not create these. And so it's created the game called Futures Improv.
Okay. Right.
Which,
or the AI Slop Shop.
Yeah, like for real. So if I were to, and this is pure slop. Yeah. And if I had sent it to you, Andrew, you would be in possession of work slop.
But you're not. You're just going to verbally assault me with it.
I'm just going to assault everyone with this. And so the concept here, what I said was, This was my words. Can you create a structured rundown for an episode that uses the future themed games, like a quick futures improv game where one host gives a bizarre trend and the other gets 60 seconds to explain its impact on humanity? I think that would be really fun. We can take turns answering and go for some wild questions. You can draw on any aspects from our shows because it has access to, of course, all of our transcripts and sci-fi in general. And it says, oh, sure, of course, love to. And it gives me this thing, right? But get a load of these questions. So round one, tech oddities, right? So here's an example prompt. I'll give this to you. Do with it as you see fit. AI pets become smarter than real pets.
Well...
Thanks, ChatGPT. Moving on. Yes. Everyone wears brain-to-brain chat headbands at work.
Well, so actually, these are intriguing. I can run with that.
Okay. Well, that one we can because it's brain-to-brain.
Yeah. Actually, even the pet one. So actually, no. Let's run with the pet one.
Okay. AI pets become smarter than real pets.
Yes. Well, of course, part of the problem is
what is smarter?
What is smarter? What does intelligence mean in a pet? And do we really value our pets for their intelligence? So the person that loves their goldfish, did you choose that goldfish because of its intellectual ability, or the guinea pig, for instance?
Yeah, exactly.
And even your cat, maybe the cat you did, but the dog, maybe it was for its love rather than its intellect.
Sure. So it's dedication.
But then the question is, do you lose something if you have that dog, that lovely sloppy dog, and you have your AI dog, and it becomes so smart that it becomes a real pain in the butt? Do you lose a little bit of love for it in the future?
Yes, you do. And you show it the door, really, or the delete button or whatever.
Though actually, the thing that's worrying me more now is the goldfish that suddenly becomes super intelligent. That is a little scary.
Yeah. what is it? There's a cartoon, American Dad or something that has like this like super intelligent goldfish that's like it's like German or something. I can't remember. Well, and I look at this and I'm like, AI pets become smarter than real pets. I'm like, okay, one is I feel like it's just strange because what is an AI pet? Is this an embodied?
Yeah.
Are we talking? So
this is actually quite generative though. Despite the fact you were dissing it, are we just looking at like sort of these little digital pets, or are we looking at a physical thing?
Because here, and I say this is the power that the humans bring to a really lame prompt.
Right.
So are we talking a advanced Tamagotchi little, you got to feed it, or are we talking like the Boston Dynamic robot dog?
Right.
In that case, that dog already is smarter. It's smarter in terms of
smarter.
In terms of its ability to execute commands. And if that's how I think you would probably judge intelligence, I guess, in a pet by its ability to problem solve, to follow directions,
get its own meals, take itself out when it needs to use the toilet.
I'm not in favor of people keeping octopuses as pets.
Yes,
but also, those are some amazing creatures that can problem solve better than some humans.
But how about if it's a service pet? So here I can see it working. An intelligent sort of embodied AI pet that sort of learns to love you. So maybe there's a little bit of transactional love there. But more importantly, it can sense things which are going to be important to protect you.
Okay, so service animal, I guess depending on, even within there's a huge spectrum. But I would say, and this is where we'd love to hear from someone who actually is an expert in this area.
Right.
But I'm like, I don't think a machine could do what a service dog could do, especially the type that are trained to smell when someone's about to have a seizure.
Right.
Or an epileptic seizure or someone where you can see the dog can sense things
it can pick up all of those sort of subtle triggers.
Or these hormonal releases or whatever the human body is doing that even the host doesn't realize is coming.
There is bound to be a company out there that is trying to do exactly this, sort of saying if the dog can measure it, we can measure it.
But I wonder. That's one of again, when you think about the incredible complexity and beauty of how nature has evolved, the fact that a dog and its senses are able to do that, and what it can pick up on, right? Changes in your behavior, changes in your scent, changes in whatever, to say, I know you're headed towards.
So I'm going to get really dystopian here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Remember back to that episode with Sean Dudley talking about biohybrid robots.
Yes.
How long is it before somebody works out that you can take a Boston Dynamics dog and you can take a real dog nose and the sort of the nasal system and a little snippet of his brain sort of inserted in. So now you've got a robot dog that can sort of sniff out all of those early indicators. So now you've got your robots, your intelligent AI pet companion that can do everything that a real dog that can do.
I kind of want that.
You what?
I guess it would depend, right? As long as you're not extracting the brain from another, like if it's like lab-grown brain, I'm a little bit more. But that would be really interesting.
The life out of me. Right. Robot dogs with real dog brains in them,
right? Because I was thinking of it as like one or the other,
right?
Not an actual like cybernetic, thing creature.
But then you think, why stop with dogs? You could have the super intelligent sniffing hamster.
Oh my God. You know what you could have? Is I could have the robotic horse that was a He-Man toy when I was a child. I was like, this thing's amazing. It's like a horse, but it's mechanical.
See, I'm pulling you over to the dark side here. Now you're beginning to get enamored with this idea of intelligent AI pets.
Yeah, I'm kind of, what do you have? I suppose it probably would be hypoallergenic. You could just say, either make it so or not have it have any fur. Or it's like, the cybernetic pet is a little bit different. I think I take it back. I apologize, ChatGPT. Who knew these lame questions?
Such a profound question to ask us.
We're actually pretty good.
Yes. What else do we have on this list?
Okay, brain-to-brain headbands at work.
But this is a scary one.
Yep.
Because already, who was it? goodness me, the company that recently sort of came out with sort of an external
that like Halo thing?
Yes. Yeah. I want to say Meta, but I don't think it is. But anyway, we're getting close to these devices that actually sort of monitor brain activity sort of externally, and then sort of it's only 2 or 3 steps before they start communicating with other people wearing these things.
Yeah, one of my students had found on a Horizon scan, had found something that was real recent. I think I have to look it up. I feel like it was, I want to say it was out of MIT or some connection with that, and then university in Japan maybe. But it's same thing. It was like, hey, we're getting close. Their whole thing was, or the headline was, we're getting closer to the singularity by being able to map like. But yeah, I mean, I've long said, I'm like, the minute, and this would be true if there was any way to just, in any form, extract what's happening in your mind and expose that, that's the end of humanity.
Right.
I mean, at that point,
I know.
mean, if you think about it, I mean, even, the minute you say, don't think about an elephant, I mean, the first image or thing that pops in your mind is that elephant, which I do love elephants. But you know what I mean? It's like the minute that would happen and you could see what someone was, air quote, thinking, game over. The human, done.
But there are people who are just thinking, how cool is this? And they're active. There are actually companies that are actively working on doing exactly this.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that has allowed humans to survive as long as we have
is that privacy.
Is the disconnect between what we think and our mouth, which for some people is not as good of a defense as it should be.
Right.
However, like, to have no thought secret.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting. I mean, think about just as a thought experiment, if you lived in a world where there'd be nothing, there was no internal monologue or dialogue that was private.
Tinfoil hats. It's coming.
Get your Modem Futura branded tinfoil hat. That's a good product line.
We all thought it was a joke.
You're right. That's right. Now, who's laughing now? Because the sandwich board come with it as well.
Of course.
Who's laughing now? And you've got the tin hat.
That's right. No, it says on the back, it says the end of the world is nigh, and on the front, who's laughing now?
Oh my God, I love it. Okay. All right. Other one we have, driverless cars refuse to drive unless passengers meditate first.
How weird.
All right. So it's forcing. Okay. So we get into a Waymo
intervention. Yes.
So I got into a Waymo. So it's like you get into the Waymo and it's got the nice little chime. And it's like, when you're ready to begin your drive, press start. But it's like, first it's like, before we begin, take 2 minutes.
So this is the serious cybernetics version of Waymos with the personality chip. Right. So that actually is the more intriguing thing. Putting personality chips into Waymos and Teslas and any other sort of vehicle like this.
See that, and coming back to that carrot thing, how fun would this be? Where if you because again, when you get into a Waymo with your account, you can choose all these different preferences, right?
Right. Yes.
And how fun would that be if you have like a selection of personality chips where you're like
Waymo saying, brain the size of a planet, and you want me to go,
or it's like from the movie version of Heart of Gold. Hi there, and it's like this obnoxious. Where would you like to go today? Before we go, you must buckle. It's like, oh my God, that could be really fun, actually. Yes. All right, so Waymo, Google, if you're listening, I think that can be the Modem Futura. Put Modem. You know what? In exchange for putting Modem Futura in as part of the entertainment elements, because they use Spotify.
They do.
They should. I'm telling you, you should run Modem Futura as one of the options in there.
Yep.
But also, like, that would be the exchange for our idea of putting the personality chips in there.
Yes.
I would take that. And I want a pair of socks. I heard you got a pair of socks one time.
I got a pair of Waymo socks, my treasured Waymo socks.
I would like a pair of Waymo socks. I do not have one. I'm happy to pay for them, but I would like some.
If you're listening, Waymo, Sean would like a care package.
That's right. Please, come on. I did not get stuck in the rain in one, but I did take, I took a Waymo twice in one day, which was really fun. And the other thing I discovered is, as cool as that technology can be, and as fun as it is, sometimes you still can't remove the human out of that loop, because I get in and someone before me had left their trash in the Waymo.
How awful.
Yeah.
So it shows how standards change. So now you get into a car and it's not pristine inside and you're apoplectic about it.
And I'm like, excuse me?
Right.
There is rubbish touching my thigh. But you get in here and my first thought was like, are there like where are the like who did this?
Yes,
and then I'm like, it better not think it was me,
right?
Because I'm like, I would not do that. But now I'm like, I don't want to touch this garbage that someone left in the door.
It's when you get in and close the door, and the Waymo voice says, "Mr. Leahy, could you please remove your trash before we start?"
Like, it's not mine, I swear. Oh yeah, but I thought that was interesting though, because I was like, what? I'm like, come on. And then also I'm like, really, people? Like you step into the future in the sense of you got this fancy Jaguar driving you without a person in it, and you leave your garbage.
But yeah, it could be far worse. It's when you realize that the previous passenger was a drunk and has vomited.
Oh my God. Yeah. I wonder how they handle that. Because, you know, like all taxis, right? Especially like college towns, you know, nightlife areas, right? They all, I mean, I remember back in the day, you'd get in these places and very prominently in large font would be like, you know, $50 cleaning fee for whatever. And I'm like, how does a Waymo handle that? If you get like, even if it's just you get car sick or something, even like, you know.
Well, so this is the future where it locks the door so you can't get out. A little compartment opens with a cleanup kit there. It says,
the drone,
you know
the drone
what you've got to do.
out.
Yes.
Oh, there's something with like a hose, you know, just like, you know, delouses you in the back practically. Oh my goodness. These are actually, okay.
Okay, you take it back. These are, yes.
Completely withdraw my earlier snark and skepticism. I'm having fun with these. We have a lot, and I don't.
Maybe we should do one more and then wrap up. Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. This one is drawing from pop culture and sci-fi. Let's see. Jurassic Park, but it opens on the moon. Which was bizarre. I mean, I'm like, ugh.
Moon dinos.
Moon dinosaurs. Yes. I mean, you know, I mean, as a cruel experiment, it would be like, well, how would a T-Rex operate in low gravity?
But I can imagine this.
Okay.
So you imagine a future. Mars would be better, but let's say
something
we use the moon. We decide that we've got to commercialize the moon. So if we're going to get to Mars, we need a revenue stream, which means that this becomes a tourist destination.
Yeah.
But of course, sort of moon rocks are a little boring. Once you've seen one, you've seen them all. So you have to create something else.
Great dirt is not that exciting.
So there is this sort of consortium that decides to develop the ultimate theme park on the moon. They have the sort of the big sort of dirigible enclosures, and they decide you can't just sort of transport animals from the Earth. You've got to have moon native animals and flora and fauna. So you genetically engineer stuff, and this is how it would work. You would look at organisms on Earth that you think could be adaptable to that very low gravity environment, and you begin to splice those genes together. You use a little bit of AI to sort of create the genome with these, and you create a brand new form of animal, of sort of organism.
A moon Rex.
Yes,
or something.
Yeah, right? And of course, the dinosaur theme will get the people there, but they've got to be designed dinosaurs that are sort of adept at dealing with that very, very low gravity, sort of bouncing around in terms of. Yes.
Well, I was looking too because I'm like, I was thinking it was 1/8, but apparently, according to Google, it's 1/6 the gravity.
Yes,
here
it is very low. But this is a beautiful sort of idea of a future Jurassic World. Jurassic World Moon Edition. But imagine sort of dinosaurs that have been sort of developed to be adept in 1/6 gravity. So you're going there and you've got these things sort of zooming around. You've no idea where they're going to come from.
You know, and honestly, I mean, given the way that the movie franchise has been going with weird genetic creations, why not?
I know.
They kind of walked away from dinosaurs.
I would go and watch that.
We were just having a laugh in our family because it doesn't matter. My son was building a Lego set that was Jurassic Park, and he was like, "Who's the guy who gets eaten on the toilet in the movie?" And I was like, "Oh, that's Gennaro. That's the lawyer." And I was like, "What we need is the moon version, right? The moon lawyer who gets eaten off the space toilet by some space Jurassic Park dinosaur."
This is Jurassic Park meets Alien.
Yeah.
I can see it now.
Oh, yes. Who needs dinosaurs? You just put xenomorphs on, like some containment in there and be like, have at it, people.
This is the backstory of the backstory. This is where it all started.
That's where it all started. The Prometheus
it was John Hammond or his predecessor decided, wouldn't this be cool having Jurassic Park on the moon? And they create the xenomorphs.
Spared no expense. No, that's what, and I always have this vision when I think about the moon, right? There's a, who did the Martian? Andy Weir.
Yes.
He had another book called, I think it was just called Artemis, which was a totally separate story about a colony on the moon that was fully functional, and they have a disaster and all this kind of stuff. But the way they described it was basically these large spheres, right? That would have, the top layer, which was like the dangerous layer because of radiation, whatever. But most of it was the subterranean part where they could be sheltered from radiation. But even that, and then any other, my mind is still so heavily imprinted from 2001 Space Odyssey with the part where they're on the moon and it's like this tourist thing, and they're like, get on the bus and we drive out to the location to see this monolith or whatever. But I'm like, now I have this vision of that going from these spherical bubble like spots on the moon, and one of them is the Jurassic Park. It's a theme park, right?
It's
that's interesting.
Yep.
That's really cool. Yeah. In other thing, I'll just share some of these, and you choose if you want to talk about any one of these. Willy Wonka's factory is rebuilt using nanotech.
Okay.
Let's see. Here is a quintessential AI to the Star Wars holodeck. Oh my gosh.
Hallucination.
Yeah, wow. Come on. Like, that's got to be in the training data. You can't conflate Star Wars and Star Trek. People get really cranky.
Right.
So we'll toss that one aside. Okay. Let's see. What if your AI companion became your boss? That's kind of on the nose of these things kind of taking over a little bit. Like, what if the script is flipped and all of a sudden this, your ChatGPT is now in charge?
That gets me thinking.
I mean, agentic AI, right, under the promise, or even just in other scenarios. Like, again, as we were talking about work slop, way I'm starting to think about this is like one of a job you may have in the future, this entry-level position, is you report to system 459.
Well, I was going to go that way, but slightly different. I was going to ask the listeners, how many of you never actually see your boss in person? You always communicate via Slack or email. If that's you, just pause for a minute and ask yourself, is your boss an AI?
Yeah. How would you know? I mean, if it starts talking about Star Trek or Star Wars and holodecks, that's a clue.
This is the test.
Dear ChatGPT, go delve into that, my friend, because you've got some learning to do. Right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So funny. But yeah, these are actually, again,
they're good conversation starters.
They're funny enough. They're ridiculous enough where, again, you add the humans in the mix, and we can make something fun out of these questions.
That's right. Yes.
That on their face are they're a little flat.
Yeah.
Because again, I think the question in here, the way it leads, and then again, right, proof in the pudding here when we were talking about this is what those questions lack is you can't really tell what the intentionality or what it's, because it isn't. It's just probabilistic tokenized words, right? Yep. So, that's fun.
Yeah. That was a nice way to kick off the new sort of next year of Modem Futura.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even notice this. I scrolled further down. There's more. Well, and I will share this. Talking about the slop, one last bit here. So what I find interesting now, which I think is a newer feature of ChatGPT 5, is when you ask it, and not if you put it in research mode, but if you put it in like the generic, it'll figure itself out mode. I asked it for this. Every time it finishes the prompt, it says, well, now would you like me to do...
Yes, it asks you a follow-on question. It engages you. Yes,
and so what I started doing is just I'm just going to say yes to everything.
Yep.
So it's like, here's this list. Would you like me to make a list of 20 ready-to-use prompts for a lightning round? Yes. So it gave me a bunch there. And then it's like, would you like me to put this into a game card deck? Yes, I would. And so it just keeps going.
This is a new game. How many times could you say yes? Or where do you end up?
So it went on and on and on. But so it started doing things which sound really cool. Yeah. Would you like me to make a digital slide deck version of this improv game? Yes, I would. And it creates a PowerPoint slide when you pull it up. It is atrocious. And that's what made me trigger this work slop. I'm like, if someone handed that to me and was like, I've done it, I'm like, start over. I don't care if even if the language was right. I'm like, this is unusable.
Looks bad,
And then it's like, would you like me to make a video of that? Yes, I would. The video is horrible. It's as you would imagine, it's the same crap.
Yep.
And then it's like, now would you like me to make a new jingle for your anniversary show? And I said, yes, I would. And it's like, so it said, would you like me to add music and sound design? Maybe a playful modem squawk remix for the transitions to give it a signature Modem Futura vibe? Yes, I would. And what it came back with was just this awful, if I can, maybe at the end, I'll see if I can bother to add it in just so people can hit. It literally is just a sound that just goes beep, beep. That's all it does. I'm like, absolute junk. But again, it sounds good.
Right.
And it sounds like it should be this, you know,
Yep.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it's like, and I love it. And it runs this whole Python script and it runs all this stuff. And you're like, wow, this is really, I mean, it's working.
Right.
It's working hard at this. And it's like, done. I added a playful soundscape with beeps and modem-like tones to give you looping futures improv cards, the signature Modem Futura vibe. And it is absolute trash. It is garbage. But it's, I mean,
yeah.
But again, it's just one of those things where you're just like, what? Like, again, it sounds and it's saying the right things.
Yes.
It's offering to make the right things.
But this is where you can very clearly see that it's mimicking stuff with zero substance there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see. I'll play it in the studio. So I think only Andrew and I can hear it, this part. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Yep.
Well done.
Yes.
Back to the drawing board with you.
Yep. How many reservoirs did it take to
I know. Well, that's the other piece, right? You're like, sorry. Sorry,
right.
Sorry about that.
Drained half of California dry, tried to create the
just
jingle.
Dumped out a reservoir somewhere. Sorry about that. Yeah. No, it's absolutely fun. But yeah, well, I suppose maybe we should just.
I think we should
call
probably
it quits
wrap
for
this
tonight.
up. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So absolutely fantastic. You know, another year down, or first year down, or whatever.
First year down. Next year
to
coming
go.
up. Yes.
We're already into it. So look at that.
We are. Yes.
We're already
look forward to another 51 episodes.
That's right.
In this next year of Modem Futura.
Absolutely. We got lots planned, lots exciting things happening.
Yes.
We still owe everybody the Apple Vision Pro episode.
We do. Yes.
Which now with the new updates, it'll be easier for us to do. And hopefully.
And we need to get our hands on some of the new Meta Ray-Ban glasses.
We do. Yeah. We haven't even talked about that because that dropped right around the time all the book.
And so if nobody's aware of this, these are the new glasses that project an image into sort of one of your eyes. You can actually sort of you can interact with the digital world while you're wearing these as well as sort of record stuff. I'm
really intrigued by the hardware. Of course, the downside though is as I was looking in, because the price point, I think they're $800.
That's it. Yep.
So expensive, but not, I mean, not $3,500 expensive.
It, yes, yep.
But also the downside, right, is if you look at these sort of and we can do a whole episode on these kind of things. But the challenge is right away is, unlike Google or Apple who have this massive ecosystem, Meta only has Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. So like your glasses right now only do those.
So you can be doom scrolling while nobody knows.
Yes.
But that's pretty much it.
Yeah. But I'm like, you can't put directions or things like that. And the other thing I will say that I think was pretty funny was that they were very proud about the fact that it only has a 2% light leak, which means no one can tell you're using it while they're looking at you. So I'm like, oh, great. That's what I know. Either that's terrible or it might be the best thing ever. But we should try to get our hands on
one of the episodes. But as you were saying, we've got some great stuff lined up. We want to get some sort of kids in here to have a sort of a kids discussion about AI, which I think will be a lot of fun. There's a lot going on.
We've got a lot. It doesn't end. And so, and for all of our listeners who has been with us for one episode or all 52 episodes previous, a huge thank you to our community of listeners. Cause I mean, honestly, the feedback and the conversations we get from people who have listened, who chime in has been absolutely tremendous. This show, we would still do it without you, but it wouldn't be nearly as fun. But yeah, so again, big appreciation. And again, if you're thinking, if there's any way you could help us, there is, which would be just to help spread and share the show. So either by making sure you subscribe to Modem Futura in any way, shape, or form through any of the channels, through Apple, through Spotify, through YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts from, that would be great. An additional bonus, if you could leave us a rating and review, because that is actually one of the best ways that our show can reach new listeners is through the algorithms of each platform. That is one of the best metrics for getting us out to new listeners, which would be phenomenal. So if you wouldn't mind, if you leave us a rating and review, that would be fantastic. And we read every single one that comes in.
Absolutely.
And so if you want to leave us a note of something in there, then maybe that can something we can mention on one of our future episodes if we can, identify it. So
Sounds good.
Fantastic. Well, Andrew, thank you again for not just this episode, but for the whole year. It's been an absolute blast.
Same here, Sean.
Looking forward to the next. And so, yeah, I'll stuff our show notes with a bunch of the links that we talked about and share so people can go have a look. But otherwise, we will see you on the next episode of Modem Futura.
We'll see you then.
And transmission.
All right, we'll keep the cameras rolling. I was going to do this at the very end, just in case we don't want to include this, because I will not see you for your birthday.
Yes, which is the big one.
Which is the big one.
Yes, next week I turn 60 and everything changes. At least so I think. So, okay.
Okay, so this is a gag gift, and it's an inside joke, so I don't know if anybody will get it, but you will.
Okay,
so,
right. Okay,
yeah.
So opening it now. For the people that are listening, taking the yellow paper out and pulling this out, it's a mug.
It's a mug.
It's a mug. Let's take the bubble wrap off. This is absolutely wonderful. So it is a mug that simply says, I am sufficient, which will mean absolutely nothing to anybody unless you know that in my last annual review, I was graded as merely sufficient.
Yep.
And it is one of those things that I will never forget, especially now that I have the mug to remind me that I am sufficient.
That's right. And just,
no more, no less.
That's right. And just for context, one of not only ASU's, but one of the world's premier faculty and researchers getting marked merely sufficient is comedy enough.
And you've got to understand that sort of this is like getting a C.
Yeah,
I mean, it basically means that you scrape past the bar.
Yeah, that's right. We're not taking disciplinary actions, but enjoy. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. So, I have this vision, Andrew, of you put this like sometime at one of the faculty meetings is just putting this down.
No, I am absolutely gonna use this. Yes, I am gonna own this with pride.
Well, fantastic. Well, happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you.
And here's to another year of enjoyment. And hopefully, what's the measure? What's the mark above sufficient? Meeting expectations?
No.
It's something equally weird.
It's superior.
Oh, yes, right. So it's quite a fall from superior.
Can you believe this? We rank our faculty. I forget what the first one is, but it's basically didn't meet the bar. But then it's sufficient or superior.
So
I mean, I don't even want to be superior because I'm not superior, but I don't want to be sufficient.
Oh my gosh! Yep.
We ought to knock this on the head. But thank you for the mug. This is wonderful.
Absolutely. All right. Fantastic. Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.